Reading effectively.
It's really important that anytime you sit down to read an academic text, you have a purpose for reading. Your time is precious and it can be very off-putting to sit there not knowing quite what you're hoping to get from a text. So having a clear purpose for reading is very important.
In an academic situation, we are frequently faced with a lot of material we could read. And therefore being able to make choices about what is the most useful thing for us to read, what is the most relevant, what is going to answer our questions is very, very important. So thinking about that at the start, before you open a book, before you start reading an article, it's a very useful thing to do.
So it may be that you're reading something to get a general background idea around the subject, maybe quite early in the process of learning about a particular topic. Or it may be that you're looking at something much more focused, much more in-depth, possibly because you need to talk about that particular article or that particular chapter or that particular book in depth in your particular work.
So if it doesn't need to be so in-depth, because perhaps you're preparing for a lecture or seminar, you might just do skim reading to get a kind of an overview of what that text is about in relation to the topic. Or if you are trying to do quite an analytical piece of reading in order to produce a piece of writing, then you might look at it more carefully and more closely. In order to be quite active in your reading, it's very helpful to pose some questions that you're hoping to get from the text first.
So having a few focused questions can help you navigate through those texts very quickly. For example, you might only need to read one particular section of that work.
If you're starting out with a subject about which you may not know a great deal, the question might be as simple as, well, what is this subject about? What is this idea? What is this experiment? What is this theory? What is this particular event that I'm reading about?
Or it might be something slightly more complex, like how does this piece of reading fit with other things that I've read already on this topic? So at the end of your reading, it's really important that you take some time to review how that information fits with the questions that you've posed. You might make some notes in response to that and just check whether you think the question that you started off with has indeed been answered through your reading.
You may find that you have partial answers to the questions, or maybe one or two answers, but not all of them. And so you can then reflect on what you need to read next.
Do they answer the question fully? Does it answer them in part? Do they say something that we weren't expecting them to say? And might that dictate that we need to go and read other things, or possibly reread the text, just in case maybe we've missed something or misunderstood something?
So once you've reviewed the answers that you've gleaned from the text or texts that you've been looking at to try and answer your posed questions, you need to decide whether the information that you have is sufficient to answer those questions. If it is, great, go away and do with that information what you intended to do. If it isn't, then you'll need to find something else to read to supplement that reading.
It could be that the basic questions that you set that you wanted to find answers to have been answered, but then thinking more about the hows and the whys, the analytical questions, that's where you need to read some more. Or you may feel, actually, I know enough about this, I have enough material to be able to discuss this in detail.
So having that idea of what else can I do? Is there anything else out there? Maybe there's something that goes into more detail, maybe there's something that expresses it in a slightly different way, maybe it expresses it more clearly, maybe it talks about it in a different context. Maybe it takes a different point of view. All of that process is a key part of learning and being part of the kind of critical independent learner that the universities want you to be.
It might be that you're going to incorporate some of those ideas into a written piece of work. It might be that you're supplementing what you know about a topic for your revision, or it might be that you're preparing for a presentation or perhaps a seminar or lecture.
It may be, from your point of view, that the text helps you with the particular piece of work you're working on, such as an assignment, but even if it doesn't, that doesn't mean that work is wasted. Keep a record of what you've read, keep a record of what you think about what you've read.
To find out more about the Learning Enhancement team, you can visit our website or follow us on Twitter.